Man, it's sad to watch. I do like to say energies on people or demons on people or spirits on people versus making it who they are, right? They can always make the change, but it takes effort and consistency and work. You're not going to snap overnight and love yourself when for so long you haven't, to the point where you've become this bitter, envious, jealous, revengeful. They've turned into such awful people. But what they've been showing me lately is people who were good and pure and sweet and kind, and we all slip, right? We all slip. We all have to learn these lessons. Yet it's like they couldn't get back up, or they continue to surround themselves with other people who don't love themselves, because then they're all clinging on to a bunch of lower energies as well and feeding off of one another, and then just become completely unconscious to what's occurring because it becomes the normal. It's normal, right? They're all envious. They're all bitter. They're all gossiping. They're all bitching. They're all complaining. It's normal. It's no longer even a bristle that it's odd or unusual or that it is lower energies. They're just familiar with it. And it's one thing when you fall and then you wake up to it, you realize that you're like, fuck, what am I doing? When did I turn into this asshole, right? And you start to do the cleanup work and take your accountability and make the changes and blah, blah, blah. But it's not what they're showing. And I think why it's upsetting me the way they're showing me is it's so sad, but what they're showing me and what the people have then agreed to do and continue behaving as, yes, thank you. It does give the energy of the boy who cried wolf. Even if they get it together, they've dug themselves such a hole from the consistent ill behavior that once they start to pivot, it's almost like it's that much harder for them because nobody will believe them. So then they'll more easily just give up. Do you know what I mean? And so it's it's that much harder for them to be consistent and true to themselves so that they can be consistent and true with others. Yeah. But it just feels sad what they're showing me, because I think that does happen a lot to a lot of people who chose the lesser path, right? That idea that didn't love themselves enough to honor their selves and their life, and they just watch it wash on by. I don't even know why they keep... it's just so sad. And again, it's I can relate. I've been there. I think everybody has, if they're honest. It's until you do wake up, what happened? I'm slipping. I don't like this. This isn't what I want for my life. I'd like something for my life here. What do I want? And you have to, work towards that and figure it all out. But I get it too. It's when you get, you run into, I don't know if it's roadblocks or it's I don't know what else to say. This energy and these visions are more the boy who cried wolf seems to be the best sum up. Yeah, and that is so sad. And yet they did it to themselves. Do you know what I mean? That was the other thing that was really coming through. I guess maybe it is part of this. It was very much somebody who was always giving their list of excuses as to why And granted, they did sound horrific. Don't get me wrong. The story this one had was like, holy shit. And yet, have you walked yourself back to the origin, which is you? It always begins and ends with us. Like, where did you step into that mess? Where was your first step in? And I think for them, I think it was monetary or clout. It was something along that. And they just didn't want to admit it. They didn't. They really didn't. They couldn't even see it, I don't think, because their ego was just totally like blocking them. It was like they had no sun in their life. They had no light. It was all like this bitter, dark, angry excuse book. And it sounded like a shitstorm. It did sound horrific. Yet because they were taking no accountability, and it's always like, you have to be honest about it. Don't take accountability with me, right? It's like, don't take accountability. It's like, you have to take accountability with yourself and your maker. Like, you have to do that. And you have to mean it. Because words are cheap. And it'll hit you if you really do acknowledge it and recognize it. It hits. Like, it hits. Because you're like, fuck. I mean, like, you really see it because you really didn't before, right? You were so driven by that shadow and getting that need met. And it's like, as soon as you take that accountability and see it so that you can learn that lesson and move on, it's easier than we think, but it's swallowing that pill. That is the challenging thing to do, right? Most people don't want to. They'd rather give their list of excuses and stay where they're at. But it's not fair. This happened and this happened. But for the rest of their lives. And it's like, all right, well, definitely sit there in Buttville and be miserable and make your excuses. That's bye-bye. You can't stay there with them. And they just refuse to take any accountability. It is a hard pill to swallow. It does suck. It does suck when we're unhappy and we have to recognize that we created that reality. Somewhere along the line, there were steps we took and intentions we had and blah, 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 whatever the case may be. And it is challenging because we're unhappy. So we're really unhappy with ourselves. We're disappointed in ourselves. Ooh, isn't that the worst? Disappointed in ourselves. Oh God, that was the worst, right? Like if we did something wrong and my father would say he was disappointed. Oh, not angry, not whatever, but disappointed. Like that's like a dagger to the heart. And that's what it is. We disappoint ourselves. Oh, fuck, right? It's like, oh, we're better than that. We're better than that. And we didn't do better than that. Damn, is that a hard pill to swallow? But in getting that dagger to the heart, in swallowing that pill, it also helps integrate it. You'll remember, right? You experienced that now to truly remember. Right? It's no longer just lip service. I know a lot of people who are judgy-wudgy, right? Like they have their right and wrong. They're very religious. They know the rules, but they have lived all about 2 square meters of life. They don't come outside their cave, but they will judge each and every one of you. They'll tell you. And it's like they don't have any clue. They've never actually lived because they're scared to come out of their little cubic box. And they're not integrating any lessons and they can't understand any lessons and they can't understand what's going on with other people because they refuse to live. They're too fearful, right? And they're too righteous. And so it's like, don't beat yourself up. Recognize that you were brave enough to live, to experience, and recognize sooner than later when you make the mistake that it doesn't feel good or right and you want to know why and you figure it out because you're honest with yourself and you keep living, right? You are having a much more fulfilled life by making mistakes. They're beautiful and wonderful. If you don't make mistakes, that means you aren't living. You're not. You're too fearful to live then. So But you do have to swallow that pill. That is part of the living and the growing. Otherwise you do stay stuck and stagnant. Right? Yeah. It's like there's no necessarily, quote, easy path. It's just the path you choose. There's people that are very happy living in their cubic box and being the judge of all and telling everybody who's right and wrong. Right? They're very happy living on that high horse. And then they'll die and go to ashes, and that'll be the end of that. Right? Like they won't actually have ever lived. They had the chance, they chose to give it up. So, it's almost like be happy that you have to swallow that pill is what I'm trying to say. Like, wow, you get the opportunity to swallow that pill, to learn that lesson, to up level. A lot of times I joke that I'm lucky, and, it's not that. It's like people who are lucky. It's not that they're lucky. It's that they're choosing to love themselves, and they're choosing to do the work, and they're choosing to take accountability, and they can go much quicker than the people who sit around bitching and complaining and saying that's not fair. They're just lucky. That's not right. I don't know how they're doing that, right? They get angry. Right? And that's where they live. Bitterville, Angryville, Jealousville. It's just a matter of those people aren't sitting in that, and they're not sitting there. They're not doing that. They're doing the work. They're loving themselves. They're trying to co-create with the universe and figure out their dreams and work towards them. So it's a different energy. It's a different understanding. It's a different choice. And everybody has one. There's a lot of people don't realize it, though. They've been so fearful to come out of that 2x2 box that they really don't know they have choices. They really don't. And some of them will dip their toe out and it'll get touched and they'll snap right back in, right? And so, we've all been there, to some degree or another. It's like the same idea of like you fall off a bike and you get hurt and you got to get back on it, But some of us, it takes longer than others. Others never do it again. Some, you know what I mean? Like it's that same mentality on a million different scales and at different levels. But it's that same idea. A lot of us deal with that with love, right? You give love a shot so many times, but you have to learn the lessons all throughout it, right? Like I've had to learn so many lessons. So naive, just lots of lessons to be learned. And, I definitely was getting bopped on the head so much that I was like, okay, all right, okay. I've had to definitely take a step back, but, ready to dive back in. Because I love myself too much to not, to put myself on the shelf forever, We have to love ourselves and love our lives and know what we want. I do want to share my life with another. And to each their own. I'm not saying that as a right or wrong. I'm just saying I too will go back into my shell. I do that a lot. You hear me call myself a hermit, a different mentality and a different energy than what I'm referencing. I live life. But there are a lot of people who don't live life. So it's a very different energy that I'm referencing. Nonetheless. Okay. Thanks so much for tuning in and listening. You can now purchase an audio journey with me using the link below.